Welcome to the Tucson Tasty Show. I'm your host, Wesley Source, and we've got another amazing show lined up for you today. Some great guests, and actually kind of a dual guest. Excited to invite Jason of Levity Wellness Center into the studio today. How you doing?
Doing really well, sir. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just coming off of a grill. I had a barbecue. That was great and exciting. And so I had to cook for like 100 people. No big deal. But it is what it is. The Tucson Tasty Show wouldn't be the Tucson Tasty Show without all of its amazing sponsors. So thank you so much to Kiki Rogers of Country Financial Insurance, Vera Oral Premium Beef, Novus Vita, Mafia Kitchen, Financial Advisor Cody Peck, Network Outdoors, Local First Arizona, Levity Wellness Center, and Cirrus Visual. And Cirrus Visual is actually pretty great. I don't know if you've been over there yet, but I mean, they can pump out stickers like no other, and we have lots of stickers.
Fantastic.
In fact, we have a contest going on right now for anybody that's on our social medias and anybody that wants to follow us on social media as well. If you find a sticker and you snap a picture of it and a hashtag Find the Tasty Show, and then tag us in it, then we will, whoever has the most at the end of May gets a super special prize from the Tucson Tasty Show.
Fantastic.
Right? And in addition to that, we also have, the radio contest going on, because if you want to win tickets to one of our amazing live recordings of the Tasty Show, or the Tucson Tasty Show TV version, you can actually call in and ask questions, and whoever asks the best question, and we'll determine that here at the end of, or actually next week. And all you have to do is call 520-790-2040. Again, that's 790-2040, and ask any question you want of Jason.
Fire away.
Of Levity Wellness Center.
Bring it on.
And so how is Levity Wellness Center doing?
Levity's doing fantastic. And, it's something where we really are thrilled to be such a part of our Tucson community, just outside of Sam Hughes there, and really embedded right near the U of A. It's something where, we get a real opportunity to get to know the folks that come to see us. So it's doing very well, and we greatly enjoy all of our guests. We've developed quite a few really great relationships with a lot of locals.
Awesome. And one of the things that I really like about developing the relationships, but also having those float tanks. Now, those commercial float tanks are pretty amazing by themselves, but I mean, you can really pair them with the massage therapy or even some IV therapy. I mean, you have a lot of different options there. Which is really cool to be able to have that and definitely bring that together.
Absolutely. And that was really the goal for us, was to give folks choices of logical wellness, things that they know they're comfortable with and that are familiar and are proven tools. And it's one where even if the a la carte seems a little much, or you're not sure what best to do, feel free to call. We're happy to kind of talk you through that. Where is a float best? When is a massage best? When should I use the sauna? Shouldn't I use the sauna? Should I talk to my doctor? The answer to that one is always yes.
Yeah, right. Of course, because the doctors are doctors,
absolutely
right? So, and one of the things that I can definitely appreciate with massage therapy and then the float was that you definitely get a combination of a few things, right? So I get massage therapy through my provider, and I was like, I'm good. And then I came in and did a float, and I'm even better. In fact, to the point where the massage, typically lasts for about 2 to 3 days before I start, feeling a little bit tight and having some issues. But then but with the float, and then the combination of the massage after, it really helped to just relax everything. Not only was everything swollen, it wasn't, I have issues with my legs and stuff, and it was just relaxed, which is really awesome to be able to.
Having that flexibility of combinations of treatments, because we know that it's not going to be the same for everybody.
Right.
For myself, I've I have some hardware in my neck. I have a plate in C5, C6, and I got it from sitting out of bed. I mean, we all get crazy injuries throughout life, and a lot of times what I've found, especially for our clientele, is don't always wait for the crisis. Right? Take good care of yourself so you can take good care of those around you. And that's something that, those are philosophies in the kitchen, those are philosophies in the spa. Like, if you take good care of yourself, if you cook good food, you can take good care of the folks around you. If you take good care of yourself, you're able to take care of those around you.
Speaking of which, you were actually in the kitchen, and how many years were you in the kitchen?
So I started in the kitchen actually at Miraval on a injury, funny enough. I was a food runner and a busser and just an up-and-comer at Miraval, and really learning that 5-diamond kind of service. And I was carrying a tray out to a 12-top, and I tore a tendon in my wrist.
Ooh.
As I was putting the tray down, and it just kind of exploded across the floor and broke the front window of the restaurant. It was quite the scene as my wrist just kind of went limp.
I can only imagine, yeah.
So that was actually what started my career in the kitchen, because I needed to work, but I was down my left hand. So out on the floor, I wasn't really useful, but back in the kitchen with 50 pounds of onions, I could cut.
Oh, there you go.
So that's where I got it.
You're right-handed. I'm taking it.
I am.
Yeah, okay. And that does help out a little bit when you're trying to. Yeah. Anyway, so so Miraval, that must have been quite the experience working out in that kitchen. I mean, that's pretty high speed, pretty intensive kind of environment. I can imagine.
I had the chance to work with Carrie Neff was the head chef at the time then, and this is now, 20-some years ago. And a number of us that were young kids from the area that wanted to know how to cook, that had a love for food and beverage. Like, we actually got it. Like, wow, this is cool. Like, we get to learn about wine, I get to learn about beer and flavor profiles and the chemistry. And then with Miraval layered into it, it was the nutrition.
Right.
Like, how do I mindfully eat, but still well? How do I make a meal that's healthy for my family that isn't loaded with 3 sticks of butter, but still tastes good?
Right. That is a fine line you have to dance around a lot of the time. I mean, I can only imagine not cooking without butter, or cooking without butter with.
It was a lot of little tricks and things like that we learned that were substitutes. So it was funny that I actually learned spa cooking first, and like really got familiar with how to make healthier meals before I learned how to make a bechamel, or how to add a lot of butter, or how to deep fry well, and how to know when your oil is ready, how to know when your oil is done. So it was a really interesting education in the kitchen. I mean, even learning how to make desserts without a lot of the traditional approaches.
I can imagine. So bechamel, for everybody that doesn't know what that is, it's actually a cheese sauce, most commonly used with a Greek dish called pasticcio, and you pour it's like pasticcio is I would call it a Greek lasagna. Essentially, it's layered. You got that amazing red cheese or red sauce with the ground cow or lamb. Or a combination of the two, as we like to do, and then exactly, you're making it at home, and you don't have to do anything, right? But then once you have that, and you have the noodles put in, you have actual pasticcio noodles, and the pasticcio noodles are like long macaroni noodles, and then you put those on top, and you layer a little bit more, and then you finish it off with this bechamel, and it's a cheese sauce. So you're making this incredible. It's almost like a Parmesan if you're using the right cheese, and I can't think of the name of the cheese, but it's a really salty kind of hard cheese, and you shave it into the bechamel, and then you pour that over the top. And then throw it in the oven until it browns, right? And then it's brown and bubbly.
Golden brown delicious. That's
and yummy. And I can't imagine making a bechamel without butter.
So we got really creative. And, it was interesting. There were approaches like using chicken stock or beef stock or whatever stock that you're using appropriate for a dish, and instead of it being loaded with butter, using whether it be Greek yogurt or using gelatins in place of using the method of making it. So, for example, an oat milk with cream of tartar and whip a whole bunch into it so it actually fluffs up some, and using ingredients that typically would be used in baking or sweets in an unsweet way to really change the texture of things. So it was interesting. It was different tactics, making salad dressing with thickened vegetable stock and vinegar, and not using any oil,
so like
so it doesn't break, and there's no fat. So
and then you have all those great, amazing things from the stock, which is really good. Yeah. So I mean, yeah,
brilliant stuff. Brilliant stuff.
They have actually proven that chicken soup, like the noodle soup, and it's essentially a stock, and then you put noodles in it, right? But it's an anti-inflammatory. So we call that the
truth behind chicken noodle soup.
The truth behind chicken noodle soup. Matzo
ball soup, chicken noodle soup, all those, I mean, even albondiga, some of it traditionally, like there is magic in it. There truly is.
Really it is. And that's why it's so great to eat chicken noodle soup when you're sick, right? Because it helps to inflame stuff. But I can imagine, actually having that in a dressing and using that as the base. I can't imagine, how much better everybody would feel. We had Don from Barrio Bread on the show last week, and we were talking about his ancient grain that he uses with his breads, and it's low glycemic, low gluten. And I was like, and you get into a lot of the stuff, and then we ate this bread for the next 4 days because it was like 20 pounds of bread. It was amazing. It was the size of a paper bag.
That's
fantastic. It was, and he brought it in, and it was really tasty, and it was really great for. We had Greek Easter last Sunday, and Orthodox Easter, but it was good, and when he says I make bellies feel good. Yeah. It made my belly feel good. I was like, this isn't...
It's such a difference.
It was huge.
And Don is such a perfect example of that. Locally made, homemade, intentionally made, just artisan level craftsmanship to what he does. And if you haven't had Barrio bread, you are missing out. Go get some.
Yes. Well, and I think a lot of people eat Barrio bread without realizing it because it's in so many different restaurants anyways.
Yeah,
and
that's true. That's true.
His sourdough, you can actually, he actually was telling us that he will give out the sourdough starter that he uses.
Oh, wow.
Which is really cool.
Yeah, so if you're a baker.
Yes.
Yeah, that's an awesome start.
I mean, I've been talking about him for the last week anyways.
Top of mind.
But he brought that in, and then, so I can imagine with, the same thing that you're getting this really great response from the food that you're eating, and I can imagine that you had a lot of really happy customers.
Yeah, Miraval was an interesting thing. We catered from the 8-figure salary to a lot of the high end and the celebrity type. So it was a very interesting dynamic of.
And we're going to talk about that more right after this break. And so you got to stick through the break, and we'll be right back. Thank you to our sponsors. I'm Wesley Source, your host of the Tucson Tasty Show. Thank you, sponsors Kiki Rogers, Country Financial Insurance, Vero Premium Beef, Novus Vita, Mafia Kitchen, Financial Advisor, Cody Peck, or your financial guy, Cody Peck, Network Outdoors, Local First, Arizona, Levity Wellness Center, and Cirrus Visual. I'm your host, Stay Tasty Tucson. Welcome back to the Tucson Tasty Show. I'm your host, Wesley Source, and we're here with Jason of Levity Wellness Center, and that's levityrising.com. Go check them out right now. Get your spa treatment scheduled before everybody else does. That's levityrising.com. And of course, you can always go to the tastyshow.com and go to the About page. And one of our sponsors, just click the picture of our Levity Wellness Center, and take you right to their address, which is great. And it makes it super easy, right? The TucsonTastyShow.com, and then ignore the membership and the event page and go to About and to the bottom and schedule that float. Now, Those floats are amazing, but we're talking about your time out at Mirabel.
Yes, sir.
And what an incredible experiences that you had, because you were telling us before the break that you were catering to 8-figure income,
Yeah.
6-figure income.
It was a really interesting way to cut my teeth in the restaurant industry because it was a non-tip environment. So you made a decent wage and everybody was really in a decent mood. There was
wow.
no competition. Nobody was fighting over tables. If you got cut, I'm out. And you were excited. If something got 86th, that's just how it was. I mean, there was a much more team effort to it,
Right.
almost team service aspect. And because you had the honor of taking care of some celebrities and there was some of that like fanfare to it, you really took what you did with a lot of pride. And so
Right.
most of us were young kids from Catalina. I mean, we didn't know anything about Five Diamond Service, but we had some incredible managers and we had some really great chemistry.
Right.
And we were Five Diamond for, I think, 4 or 5 years there. And it was just an incredible run. It was so much fun, from waiting on some of the super elite that were very particular and difficult, and some
No
that were,
names,
no
of
names,
course.
no,
Right,
no.
right, right.
I don't need to be on Twitter for any reason.
Right.
And some that were endearing and would treat you like family and insist you sit with them and grab you by the hands and look you in the eye, and you're across the table panicking because, oh my God, this is so and so.
Right.
And so it was this incredible experience that taught me a ton of humility. But then by the time I was a 19-year-old kid, and some of the people that I had waited on, there was a fearlessness, not a cockiness, but a fearlessness that you only get from waiting tables for a long period of time.
Right.
There's a social fearlessness. There's a emboldening that comes from it where you're not afraid to walk up to a stranger and ask them what they want. And so that in and itself, and then being humble enough to sometimes take the more difficult moments of being in service, and I think most of us know it, that you can be humble about it and have some grace and move through the situation and know the table will eventually leave.
That's fair. Yeah, no, I definitely I see that now when we're out at the Arizona Sands Club, for instance, or Arizona Sands Club at the north end of the Arizona Stadium. Which, by the way, if you want to come out and try one of their tasting menus, Chef Danny Perez and Chef Seth Meddy have really put together an amazing menu for us to record for the TV show. And but in addition to that, they're going to be on the show next week.
That's
So
fantastic.
we get to talk about the menu.
Yeah, we're members down there. My wife and I love it. Can't get enough. They do fantastic job with the food and service. Everything's fantastic.
And everybody's invited. All you have to do because you don't have to be a member to go to this event. In fact, they shut down the event or the entire club so we can do the recording for the TV show. And all you have to do is go to thetastyshow.com and right underneath the banner it says click for tickets. You click that and it takes you right to the Eventbrite page, and you can get tickets and
Awesome.
everything else as well. And we're looking to pack the place out. I mean, obviously, we want to make sure that we're showing support, but we also want to get as many non-members in as possible to experience the Sands Club, because it's so different than anything else. And if you haven't
Absolutely.
heard about it, I mean, you walk in there and it's literally the Arizona Stadium, and it's where all the really high mucky-mucks go and hang out for the football games. We don't have access to that, but which is fine because I hear that's
normies.
a very I think it's Miraval clientele that can
Right.
afford to belong to that part of the club, but that it's taken over by the U of A anyway. So
Absolutely. And
but
it's a privilege to be in that space. It is beautifully decorated. It is a surprise coming out of the elevator.
right,
Not that in any way that the expectation was lower, but because it's a sports facility, you don't often think of 5-star.
oh yeah,
And it just doesn't always what's top of mind. But coming out of the elevator, the service is fantastic. They're
the
attentive.
service is over
it's
the top.
beautiful.
Yes,
And the view. It's one of those that if I have the opportunity to work down there during the day and just overlook the stadium and being able to just have that as my backdrop, It's fantastic.
And just make sure you tell them that you heard about it from the Tasty Show, so that you get special privileges, because you get special stuff if you tell everybody that. So, but yeah, so getting back to what I started to say was, you get some of these servers and they walk up to you and you're like, I'm sorry, what? and they're always the new ones, and you definitely see the seasoned servers compared to the newer ones, and then there's also attitude that you see as well, which is, it is what it is, but it's not just there, it's everywhere in Tucson, and that can make or break the whole experience. And
Sure.
So it's definitely something that we talk about, when we're there.
And to be fair, it's one that, as the server, I know that I didn't kill it with every table. I know I didn't knock it out of the park with everyone. I tried, and there were some that, man, I could not get that app out of the kitchen, or I ordered the wrong thing twice in a row. What is wrong with me? I mean, we're human, right? So those things
Right.
happen. So a lot of times when my wife and I dine out, we try to give a lot of grace in some of the moments.
Absolutely.
Where there are teaching moments without being in any way patronizing. Really engage with the server, have a conversation, make some eye
Right.
contact, get to know who they are, what are they working towards.
Oh, so have a conversation with
Yeah.
the people that are taking care of you.
Imagine that.
Imagine that, yeah. And that's one of the things that I really like about Levity Wellness as well, is when you walk in the door, you're immediately greeted, you're taken care of. It's not a back and forth, or I'm waiting in the line. It's that's your moment when you walk in the door, and which is really cool to be able to say about a spa, because you don't get that experience at a lot of different places. So it's definitely something that we appreciate.
Yeah, and I appreciate you noticing it. We, coming from Miraval, coming from some of these other places, I know that there are aspects of that 5-star, 5-diamond piece that maybe are dated, or maybe are of an expectation far beyond what maybe the spa and speedway you would expect. But we take it to a level that, we brought on an incredible team. We have a really cool little space that has some cool history, that was a
Right.
former Ronald McDonald house, so it did some good in the community,
Yes.
and we intend to continue doing the same. And we really just enjoy the interaction. When you get these authentic interactions with folks, that's when they tell you about their favorite restaurant.
Yep.
That's when they're like, oh my God, you have got to try this over at, and immediately you're like, oh man, I have to go try it.
Fair enough. And yeah, and that's true. When I'm getting massage therapy, sometimes I'm just exhausted. I don't want to talk, and usually I'm snoring about 2 minutes into the massage, and I feel bad about it. And it doesn't matter. The therapist is like, you were obviously ready to relax a little bit, and then the other side of that is also when we're just talking and we have a whole conversation the whole time, and both are
Yeah.
both great experiences. So
Absolutely.
and it's just being able to talk to everybody, right?
Yeah, it's relationships. I mean, really.
So I'm Wesley Source, your host of the Tucson Tasty Show. We'll be right back. Special thank you to our sponsors, Kiki Rogers of Country Financial Insurance, Vera Oral Premium Beef, that's vepremiumbeef.com, Mafia Kitchen, Financial Advisor Cody Peck, Network Outdoors, Local First Arizona Levity Wellness Center, that's levityrising.com, and Cirrus Visual. I'm your host, Wesley Source. Stay tasty, Tucson. Welcome back to the Tucson Tasty Show. I'm your host, Wesley Source, and we're having a fun time here with Jason of Levity Wellness Center. That's levityrising.com to schedule your time in the float tank. Now, with the float tank, I want to really clarify this really quick for everybody,
Yeah.
because this isn't, you don't have to go into the isolation chamber float tank. There is one that is very open, and I actually spent time in there, which I don't like enclosed spaces. I really don't. And I was perfectly comfortable. I was antsy though, and I got out right at the hour. And I was like, I felt like I'd only been in there for like 20 minutes. and I'm like, oh, they're gonna be so mad that I got out early. And I peek my head around the corner. It's where my clock goes from 12:59 to 1 o'clock, and I was like, well, there it is.
Yeah, the float tank, the float chamber, for many years it was isolation or sensory deprivation. So it came with this negative connotation that seemed very intimidating. But when you think about it, for eons, folks have been floating in the Dead Sea on their back and treating it as a spiritual experience. So we encapsulated that into a much more commercial experience with a little more serenity tied in.
Well, you gotta get some glowing stars for the open one now.
So it's interesting that you mentioned that. There's been a lot of conversations with a number of different folks where we've talked about, how do we take things to another level? And it's funny. I often find myself back as a purist saying, no, silence, darkness, and the initial intention of it. And I think that, especially in instances of folks of high stress, it's more helpful that way. But if, like for yourself, right, being very claustrophobic, if jazz, for example, made you very calm, and you were like, hey, I could float in there for 2 hours if I had jazz, but if I don't have my jazz, right, that's something that we do have some waterproof bone conduction earphones that if you need music, we can coordinate it and send it before.
I think that I would need to.
I mean, so we also have clients that bring in their own iPhone or their own iPod, whatever, and they set it up in the room and they just play music near the tank so that they have just a little bit of it humming in the background. We're not sticklers to it. It's not like if you don't do it our way. No, by no means. Now, what I will say is that there's a lot of science behind the ideal state of it.
Right.
Room temperature water, skin temperature water, skin temperature air, soundproof, lightproof, and a willingness to let go, breathe, and really relax, right?
I think that's what the music would help me with.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Just relax, man.
It's easy on paper. Like, just do these things. Just go in and relax. Why are you so worked? But some days it doesn't work. And I will say I've had floats that are like perfect, chef's kiss, right? The perfect float. And then I've had others I feel like I came out and was wrestling with a gorilla. Like, it was just tough, but it very necessary. It was very restful,
right?
And kind of wrestling with a feeling or a situation. And so having the more open tank, having options, having flexibility, combining appointments, being more prescriptive about what are you seeking. Well, my back's just a little sore. I'd love a massage. Versus I'm really struggling with how I walk, my gait, and my chiropractor wants me to see a massage therapist and maybe float. Those are all things we're willing to work with you and really, help you set up a plan that helps you in a way. So is it a great luxury tool similar like massage? Absolutely. But I think as most folks, as you start to get more into massage, you realize this is body work. Right. There is a science to this, and this is actual therapy. This isn't just, oh, this feels nice and I'm going to just relax and they're going to rub me. Right? It's so much more than that.
Oh, yeah.
It's so much more therapy. So, for us, that's kind of the approach that we've taken, is that it can be just a nice Sunday.
Fair enough.
It can be that simple.
And I think that music would help me because my brain's always going. But that's because we're so busy with the Tucson Tasty show that we're running from one thing to another. But thank you to amazing sponsors like yourself. And another therapy that I have though is cooking, and grilling for 100 people wasn't even a chore. I looked up and I was like, oh, we got to go to the studio. It's time to leave. Oops. And I enjoy it. It's just something that is one of my favorites. Now, in lieu of Tasty Bites with the Tucson Tasty Show, why don't we talk about what your ideal dish would be? And before we do that, I had one question for you, because you had mentioned oat milk with cream of tartar, and the only time that I have ever used cream of tartar is to clean the bottom of a spaghetti sauce pot that I've burned a little bit, and because when you do spaghetti, it's 7-8 hours.
Right.
It has to cook for that long, otherwise it's raw. And it's
truly.
Well, it's tastier too.
Yeah.
But
Grandma told me to, so that's how it gets done, right?
And sometimes you leave the heat up a little too high, and it burns on the bottom, and then you have to watch out from scraping the bottom, because if you don't scrape the bottom, it doesn't ruin the rest of the sauce. But then that pan is two ways or sideways to
That's
Sunday.
So whoever has to do the dishes is not happy, right?
And then my mom taught us a really cool trick, and that was, you boil the water with a little bit of cream of tartar. But that's the only time I've ever used cream of tartar in
so
my
funny.
life.
So don't quote me on it because it has been. I was 17 and I'm almost 41, so it's been a minute. The last time I was really making desserts out there, but if I remember correctly, it was used as a way to almost create like a substitute along with the use of gelatin to make like cheesecake. And so it was a vegan, lower calorie cheesecake, and then they would sweeten it with honey and stevia and other, alternative type sweeteners and really play off those flavors to make something that was delicious without it being, full on cream cheese, etc. Now, I'm of both schools. If you're going to have a massive piece of cheesecake, sure, it could be a little healthier. All right. But at the same time, have the cheesecake. It's you live once, and there are so many places here locally that do such a great job. Like every now and then, you got to just have the cheese. Don't have 2 slices, but maybe just the one.
Right. Well, everything in moderation.
Right.
Even moderation sometimes. But that's really cool. The science behind that, and that's you were talking about some of the people that you admire, and it's actually hilarious because I have a signed poster of Alton Brown in my kitchen, hanging on the wall right now. And it was when he came through Tucson, and it was a really amazing show. And he does go through the science of it, and that's what I love about his shows and what he's doing. And he's got that nailed. But we don't want to get into that because that's his stick. But
he's a great inspiration.
He is,
absolutely. And it makes food fun. And as myself, as a former sommelier as well, like that's something where the chemistry of flavor becomes so fun, right? Where it's like, if I have a glass of Chardonnay with an apple, if I have a glass of Chardonnay with blue cheese, at the same glass of wine, and it's completely different.
Completely.
So taking some of those like tactical tasting type activities we used to do as sommeliers that were fun, where you sit and drink 6 bottles of wine amongst 30 people and just learn flavor.
Right.
It really, to me, that's the experience of food. It's not only the social piece that you're experiencing with, but it's something that you both can communicate and experience together in a very pure way, right? Being able to have a local dish for the first time that is just out of the park and sharing that with your spouse, whatever, that's when it's fun.
Well, everything's better with food.
Right.
I mean, that's why we do Coffee with the Tucson Tasty show every week, and because it's that breaking bread, it's having some coffee first thing in the morning. And we do it at 10 o'clock, and we do it at different places around town. So you got to go to the Facebook page or even the LinkedIn page to find out where we're going to be next week. But we're going to be at Bella's Gelato. And she's actually going to be, Elizabeth, the owner, is going to be opening up early to allow us in.
Oh, wow.
And they let dogs in as well. So it's going to be coffee with Tasty Show, and I'm going to have my psychopath with me. Because she's a German Shepherd Greyhound, and she is crazy. So
yeah, we have rescue pitties, so we understand the zoomies. We get that fully.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to take her on a nice run first thing in the morning, and that'll help us, or me. Well, I'm on a bike, electric bike, so I go zoom, and she goes, why do you hate me? But it's a whole nother reason. But no, she loves it, and if we get a really docile, I think she'll be good. But we might even have a special celebrity dog who's been invited. So we'll see what happens with that. And I'm not mentioning any names because we don't know. We haven't confirmed yet. But it's amazing the Tasty Show or the Coffee with the Tasty Show, but it's the same thing. It's a food, it's a beverage, it's something that we love. It's gelato, affogato, and I mean, if you haven't had affogato or if you're not familiar with it, having really good vanilla gelato in an espresso like that, oof. And it's just unbelievable. And one of the cool things about that is she actually has a whole bunch of dairy-free options. And because I can't have regular milk, it just it's a thing, and my body hates me. But it's one of those things that's really cool to be able to go and enjoy, because I still get the nice cold
have an alternative.
treat. But with I'm also allergic to coconuts, but it's made out of coconuts and I still eat it. So
Well, we all have these moments of weakness, right? So
Fair enough.
now with food, it's amazing because we're taking traditional methods from cultures. We're taking some of the different processed things that we see, from coconut milk to oat milk to old wives' tale type of recipes, like, oh, my grandmother used to do to clean the pots. Those are all things that you learn through
I didn't even know you
food.
could eat cream of tartar
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
until
Oh,
like just a couple years ago. I was like,
I
that's
was
a recipe that's
surprised
been-
when I actually started using some of it. And this is funny for me because I went from I liked my steak well done with A1.
Fair enough. And we haven't gotten to what dish, but we're going to get that in the
Yeah.
final segment, so you got to stay through the break. And I'm Wesley Source, your host for the Tucson Tasty Show. We'll be right back. Special thank you to our sponsors, Kiki Rogers of Country Financial Insurance, Vero Premium Beef, Novus Vita, Mafia Kitchen, your financial guy, Cody Peck, Network Outdoors, Local First Arizona, Levity Wellness Center, and Cirrus Visual. I'm your host, Wesley Source. Stay tasty, Tucson. Welcome back to the Tucson Tasty Show, and I can't believe that we're already through the full hour. I mean, this has been a great show. Thank you to everybody for sticking through, and thank you to our amazing sponsors for making this show possible, and that's Kiki Rogers of Country Financial Insurance, Vero Premium Beef, Novus Vita, Mafia Kitchen, your financial guy, Cody Peck, and Network Outdoors, Local First Arizona, Levity Wellness Center, that's levityrising.com, and Cirrus Visual. And without Cirrus Visual, if you're on the YouTube or Facebook right now, this beautiful sign that's behind me was actually given to us by Cirrus Visual. And I sent them a really low quality picture, and they actually blew it up, and you can see that, you can see the definition. You can see the reflection in the icing that I put on this plate, because this is actually a photo. I don't know if everybody knows this or not, but I actually made the logo, the Tucson Tasty Show logo, from my plate, my fork, my knife, and that is cardstock that I cut out, the Tucson logo. I printed it, cut it out, threw it on the plate, and said, "This is what I want my logo to look like." And the artist said, "Looks like you got it." And I said, "Shoot!" and now it's history. So that's where we're at. So that's actually my writing in icing,
That's fantastic.
right?
Yeah, our logo was a happy accident too. A little Bob Ross moment, right?
Yes. Oh yeah, little happy
Right?
trees.
It's just a
and
happy
little
accident.
happy,
That's all. That's it. Ours was our son is very musically inclined, and I was trying to learn sheet music with him, and the quarter rest symbol
right.
just really stood out to me. And then I happened to come across that stock image, and so
Yep.
in my best Microsoft Paint, I sent over to a friend of mine who was a graphic designer. I said, "Hey, can you make this look a lot better? Thanks." And then we just ran with it from there, and the quarter rest symbol
it.
has been our thing since.
No, it's a very cool logo.
It's
and
fun.
Everybody's got to go to levityrising.com to check it out. And while you're there, check out the services. Get scheduled for
Yeah.
your float tank, because you need to go in a float tank. Everybody needs to go in a float tank. And if you don't want to go in the tank, that's okay. They have a room. Essentially, it's like
Yeah,
a
it's
big
like a tub.
shower. And I'm 6'2". I'm a big guy, and there was not only room, there was plenty of room. So I didn't feel encumbered or enclosed at any moment, which is very important to me. And so give it a shot, and you can have music apparently. So
Yeah.
that's important too, because
You can leave the light on. There's one thing that we've realized over the years is that trauma is not a cookie cutter shape,
no,
right? And some folks don't like water, some folks don't like space, some folks don't. And we're just going to accommodate whatever best we can to make this work for you.
See, I was in the Air Force, and when I was in the Air Force, I went through some training with the Navy, and they drowned me 4 times. So I don't like water either. And I was good.
Rightfully so.
I was good. I'm good now. But yeah, the float tank, you don't have any choice but to float, which is really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, you really have to fight down. And it's so much so that, I mean, I'm, again, a big guy, and, halfway through, I felt like, I really could stretch out, and I started doing stretches,
Yeah.
and even knee to chest stretches, and I did not touch the bottom. I mean, you're floating.
That buoyant.
Yes.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
anyways,
I can float a bowling ball in that big tank if I need to.
So, going into the last segment here, your last chance to call in and check us and ask any question you'd like about food that is relevant to making it or otherwise, but 520-790-2040, 790-2040. And so we were talking about your ideal dish. What would be your last meal, if you will?
My last meal. Well, if you were to give me a last meal, I have to give the shout out to my grandfather, rest his soul. He was a man of the deli. Anything from the deli, born and raised in Baltimore, anything blue crab. I mean, food was his language, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And so growing up, he used to jokingly make these Dagwood-like sandwiches, these Scooby-Doo-esque type massive sandwiches that he would refer to as the cholesterol king. And so it was always this joke, but it would be like shaved ribeye, sauteed with a little beef stock and butter and garlic and horseradish, salt, pepper, and put onto fresh baguette, toasted with butter and caramelized onions and fresh horseradish and Gruyere cheese. No, I'm not kidding. I mean, like 100% cholesterol, but I mean, really just a juicy, buttery, like beef sandwich like that. I mean, we were raised on the sandwiches with the man. He just made incredible sandwiches. So if I had to pick a last meal, it's probably the proverbial cholesterol king and a bowl of his crab soup. He used to make the most amazing red pepper blue crab soup. Blue crab
soup. Where was he from?
He was from Baltimore. So
Baltimore. Yeah, there
Owens
you go.
Mills, Baltimore. So right in the Bay, the Chesapeake Bay, and he would actually pay, out the nose to have blue crab shipped out live. And then he would partition it. Some were crab cakes, some were soup, and some were whole. And we would just eat until we were blue in the gills.
That's awesome. So I was stationed out in Virginia, and there was a place just around the corner from the base, and it was on the Chesapeake Bay. So you're out you're over the restaurants over the bay, and they had the crab pots, and they'd pull them up and cook them to order fresh. Ugh. And but my brother-in-law is from Maryland, and my sister and him lived in just outside of DC in that area, and that was something that would always happen when we would go to Maryland, is the blue crab, and he would go down to the docks and get the live, and then he'd bring them home and he'd make them, and he is an incredible cook. His name is James, and really great guy, but he would make this amazing blue crab. Well, I can't eat blue crab. So I would sit there, and I could break down a blue crab faster than anybody else. And so I would go through, and I would get this big pile of crab meat for my wife, Tina, and producer Tina. And she would just, the butter and the blue crab, and she'd have a blast with it. And
that was always the fun for us as kids. Like when they had Crab Fest, you sat around the table with the butcher paper down, and everybody had hammers, and you're just getting spattered with crab. I mean, it was just mayhem. But it was a visceral experience. Like the food was so good, the Old Bay staining your fingers. I mean, it's really one of those things with food that hard to beat that.
I never used the hammer. They were always there. The wooden hammers were always there, the little ones, and but I was able to break them down and apart without the hammer, because you're just getting this little tiny piece of meat.
Such a tiny,
but you have to break down the entire crab to get to it, and you got to get through the whole thing. Now
the question is, did you eat the mustard? That's the question.
No.
No. The mustard. It's part of the. Yeah.
Yep. No.
No. I gotta ask.
Yeah, no.
The old traditional Baltimoreans would ask if you enjoyed that portion. But, that's kind of like with crayfish or whatnot. If you eat the head, that's,
Yeah, my grandfather used to do that. He'd do a big boil, and he would eat, or he would suck out the head and have whatever,
I think most of them did it for effect,
I don't know. Apparently, it's, really tasty. So you gotta.
Not wrong.
No, But so that was one of my grandfathers. My other grandfather did brains and eggs, and so he would make us eat that too. So it was my grandparents really experienced just like your grandfather. So that's funny.
It's funny. My one grandfather was a great cook, and he made crab soup and crab cakes and anything crab, and it was fantastic. My other grandfather couldn't cook for the life of him, and he would make the most bizarre things. And so it was kind of this good dichotomy for me. Don't do that. Do that. So, I really learned how to cook some of it. And my grandmother, his wife, was not a good cook. She tried like hell, but she was not a great cook. And so it was one of those that was funny. It was like, eat what he made.
Fair enough. So, Levity Wellness. So you go to levityrising.com and you book your float, sauna, or massage, or combination of. And if you're feeling a little, you need a little pick me up, you can always get the IV treatment as well, and which is really great. So is it just levityrising.com, or is there a better way to get a hold of somebody to schedule?
So the way I would put it is levityrising.com is the easiest way. If you want to go even easier, go onto Google and type in Levity Tucson, or even Float Tucson, and you'll find us there very quickly.
Awesome.
We have a ton of Google reviews. If you're one that likes to read before, try before you buy type of thing, read other people's experiences, we have a ton in there that you're more than welcome to peruse through. We've got a ton of info on the website, et cetera, et cetera. And here's the other piece. If you just want to talk to a human instead of being on your phone trying to figure it out, call us, 520-339-6674. And you can also text that number if you're like my generation that doesn't necessarily want to pick up the phone.
Perfect. And you can also go to thetastyshow.com and, like I said, go about, and you can go right to the website. So thank you so much for joining us today on the Tucson Tasty Show. We'll see you next week and every Saturday from 3 to 4. We will have Executive Chef Danny Perez of the Arizona Sands Club and Greg Gonerman of Laramida Cellars. Thank you to our sponsors and guests. That's Jason Krause of Levity Wellness Center, Kiki Rogers of Country Financial Insurance, Vero Premium Beef, Novus Vita, Mafia Kitchen, your financial guy, Cody Peck, Network Outdoors, Local First Arizona, Levity Wellness Center, and Cirrus Visual. I'm your host, Wesley Source, and of course, you always have to say, stay tasty, Tucson.